Welcome to our roundtable discussion on design requirements for circularity. So we're going to explore this as in a concluding way. And of course, around the table, I'm joined with Juan. You've been looking at reuse. Max, you've been looking at repair. Anna-Karin, remanufacturing, of course. And Armin, you've been looking at recycling. And I'm joined as well by Esther. You've been looking at all the issues around resources and other aspects. And of course, myself, Dave Peck. You know us all. You've seen us over the weeks. I really want to get into now now I want to ask my first question. What are the ideal design strategies for your re-option? So if I can start with you, Juan, what are your ideal design strategies for your re-option?
Well, I think the main strategy is to design for durability and robustness. So, well, this of course means that the products should withstand the normal wear and tear by being made out of good materials, and also by thinking well about how the connections work to prevent connections from breaking, of course. And well, also in this aspect, you just have to take into account the emotional connection that the users will have to their products. So it's not only about the technical durability, but also about the emotional and the social durability of your products.
Okay.
For repair, it's an easy to open design product. It's a good design for repair.
To open the product up.
To open the product up, yeah, for the customer himself or for the serviceman, both sides. And the second is to easily change a broken module, for example. So you need to have a modular structure of your product, and it's designed for repair, yeah. And it's both the company repair and the customer repair that are both different things, but if you think about a design for repair, you have to think about these both approaches. Yeah.
Okay, Anna-Karin, for reman.
Yes, for remanufacturing, I think that the main thing is to design for modularity and disassembly, making it easy and profitable to separate valuable components or materials and to be able to use them again. And that will, if you design for that, then I think remanufacturing will become much better.
More successful for the businesses involved.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And finally, Armin, for recycling.
Yeah, for recycling, it is difficult and easy at the same time. So the ideal design strategy would be to avoid different materials in your product. So easy it is. You have seen in some case studies some examples, for example, the glasses where we have designed it according to this rule. But in the practical world, if you need different materials in order to fulfill different functions and requirements, please use a modular design and which is easy to dismantle and where the parts and the materials are easy to separate.
But I'm hearing as well, just looking at all these different design strategies, some could be in tension. So what would be wanted for reuse may be a problem for reman, or for, and always, they can always be in tension with recycling. So it's finding that optimal balance for the different strategies. Okay, I'd like to move on a little bit, and I'd like to ask a second question. And Esther, if I can turn to you with this one. I'd like to come back to this core issue about resources and the resource challenge. So what could be said about these design strategies in relation to the resource challenge?
Yeah, I think a lot can be said about that, but I'll be brief here. I hear for the different options, I hear a few things. One is mentioned by Juan already, like design for durability, design for robustness. This is something that keeps the product in the use phase for a longer time without anything else. So from the point of view of the resource challenge, I would say in principle it's a very good option, because you don't have to drive to and fro with new parts or new modules. You don't have to sort of bring it back to the company and do stuff with it. You just keep it in use and nothing else. So that saves resources, that's clear, and it also avoids waste. It might have some environmental implications, like keeping a product in use that is not energy efficient anymore. That can be a problem with products like that. If I think about recycling especially, then I hear design for simple products that consists of only a few materials, so that they can be recycled better. Well, the recycling process also takes energy. That's always the case. But we know that, for example, for metals, the energy that it takes to produce new materials is so much more than it takes to produce secondary materials. So from that point of view, recycling is I guess, always a strategy that helps with the resource challenge. All of the options, they avoid waste and they avoid having to dig up new resources out of the ground. Some of them have clear energy drawbacks, but some of them also have clear energy gains.
But I guess it's true to say that we will, in all the strategies, we always need feedstock of new product. So this primary mining of materials will continue. It's just the rate and the impact on how we do it, which will need to dramatically change. Is that also what you're saying? Or?
Well, not even that. I mean, if we are in a sort of a steady state economy, we may be able to keep the stuff in there circulating all the time, not having to use new ones. Of course, we are very far from that now.
Okay.
So that's something for the more distant future.
It's a transition that we're interested in. Okay. That's good. Thank you, Esther, for that. Now, I'd like to move on to another question, a third question to you all. I'd like, again, to go round in order with the Ries. Which type of product do you think the different strategies that we've talked about are most useful in the context that we're talking about? One, let's talk about reuse. What do you think?
Well, I think the first type of product that comes to my mind is, of course, buildings, because we're very used to seeing buildings being used for a very long time. I mean, in Europe it's quite frequent to see buildings that are 500 years old and are still mostly used as they were originally built. Of course, with buildings becoming more and more technologically complex, we will probably have to stop looking at buildings that can just remain in use as they are originally, but instead that we can sort of separate the components and the systems and then reuse these components as systems, as parts that can just be reused into the next generation of buildings. When we look at smaller things like furniture or household items, of course, well, those can easily be designed to be more durable and to be more robust and to last for longer. And well, of course, the most complicated ones might be electronics and those kinds of equipment, because they just change so frequently at such a fast rate that it's quite hard to be able to reuse them without them becoming obsolete.
Okay, thank you very much. Max, on the repair.
So yeah, the ideal thing would be to have expanded lifespan for each product. So design for repair is especially for complex products which have a short lifespan at the moment, like mobile phones or some kind of toys or cheap household items like washing machines. Yeah, but that's one hand. If you think about mobile phone, and if we expand the lifetime of a mobile phone, we have to think about something of not only the repair of the hardware, but of the software as well. Because I don't need a really good mobile phone after 10 years with my hardware. I can repair it and fix it already for my own, but the software is out of date.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's always a challenge for a lot of the Ries. Anna Karin, if we talk about reman.
When we talk about remanufacturing, I think it suits products where the core and or some of the components or modules last longer than the product as a whole. It's also better for products of high volumes because you make a facility, a manufacturing site or remanufacturing site where you are doing many products of the same kind. So you need high volumes. I think that cars and washing machines are good examples of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we also seen remanufacturing of these kind of products already.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We know it.
Yeah.
We know it's done, and we know it can be successful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's so good. And finally, I'm in about
Yeah.
recycling.
Regarding recycling, if you have products that are mainly made of metals, then it's quite easy to recycle them.
Mm.
It's not a big job because the technology is available and it's usable. When the mixture of materials increases, then it gets more complicated. You need additional technology. It gets more expensive and more energy is needed. That means, for example, bicycles and cars are very good examples for recycling products. Plastic materials are not so good to recycle as long as you want to get out also a plastic material out of the process, because due to technology reasons, the quality of the plastic material, the recycled one, is always of a lower quality.
So you reduce the
Yeah.
quality of the material. Okay, thank you. Well, I've got a final question I'd like to ask. And do you think, and again this is to everybody, do you think that companies will adopt these new design approaches that we've talked about in the course? Or what needs to change? Can I come to you, Juan?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think talking about durability and robustness for reuse, I think it's already something that companies have been extracting value out of. I think when we think about a brand that we relate to high quality, it's always because their products last for a very long time and because they perform very well for this very long time. So maybe they haven't been realizing that they've been doing it, but they have been doing it. On the other hand, we have also looked in the previous weeks at examples like bike sharing and car sharing, where the whole business model has changed towards the company wanting to deliver a service for a very long time, and therefore the product itself doesn't become that important. They don't have to sell that product, but they want to keep it in use for themselves for as long as possible, and therefore their revenue stream will change and adapt to get more incentives out of this way of working.
So that changes the design.
Yes, exactly.
Max?
To this kind of business models, if we come to that way, the design for repair is getting more important, because we have already repair service and design for repair today for most complex and expensive products. But it's so long it's cheap for the companies to sell and to grow by selling new products, I think there will be less change unless we have models like leasing or rental models that the companies owns the products all the lifespan. They have an interest that it's easy to repair, that the serviceman needs less time to service, or that the customer is happy with doing his for his own. And the other factor is, the other issue is the social factor. If you look at iFixit, the customer starts all over the world fixing it for its own. In every little town and village we have repair cafes, we have little repair stores. So these social impact have an influence to the companies, and the companies will get known, hopefully, that it's good to have a design for repair, easy for the customer.
It all changes. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Interesting. Remanufacturing. What do we see there, Annika?
Yeah, we already see remanufacturing happening in many cases and very profitable. I think that some changes which need to happen is, for example, the cooperation along the supply chain or along the supply circle, you could say, to send things back to each other, to help each other, to make things even better, and also to make this infrastructure to get the components back globally, perhaps. But still, I'm convinced that when future products are designed to suit remanufacturing better, it will become even more profitable and thus used. So it's up to you, actually.
Exactly. Well done. Thank you, Kanika. And on the recycling side, Armin.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter at which re-option we are looking at. Earlier or later, we have to follow these design rules to ensure the supply security of materials. And yeah, we also have to think about the end of the product at the early stage of design phase. That is for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm also convinced of the fact that the technology of recycling has also a big impact. So that means in future we will have advances in automatic dismantling, in better separation technologies, and better dismantling and better sorting technologies, and that also will have an impact on the recycling rate of materials, for sure.
And if, sorry, you were
Yeah, I also want to add that there are new technologies like the digitalization making these things possible. So I think we should also use the new technologies coming on this area as well.
sharing of information so that people can.
Yeah, it's about sharing of information, but it's also like collaborative robots working with dismantling, or so there are many new possibilities coming from.
Logistics and okay. I'm going to conclude, but Esther, did you have any thoughts on this? Because we've heard a little bit here about the business model, so there's business opportunities, but picking up on Armin's point that, you know, this is about security of supply of materials for what we need to do in the 21st century. And I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on the role of government and what they may be needing to do for companies.
One thing that needs to happen for, well, Armin's prediction to come true, that it all will happen of itself because we need to, I guess, is that there will come an incentive from policies to actually do that. For the moment, the cost of raw materials is very low, so the incentive from that point of view to actually move to more recycling, is very low.
It's a question of time.
If certain materials will become scarce in the future, then things like this may happen, but it can also be brought on by governments, not wait for it, but for example, things like a resource tax or even a carbon tax for energy will already move things in the direction of more secondary production, because it's so much more energy efficient than primary production is.
And that those are environmental impacts, of course, and we've always talked about reducing waste. So governments are moving on this around the world and going, you just can't keep dumping stuff or doing it in this way. We have to do it completely differently. And I think, if I may conclude then, we've heard from, well, you've gone through the course, you've gone through all the different aspects that we've got around this table. We are seeing a revolution happening. We're seeing a dramatic change happening around the world. Massive opportunities for businesses, massive opportunity for society, massive opportunity for governments. But the challenge is enormous. And I hope you have learned a lot on this course to address those challenges, to go out there. And as Anna-Karin rightly said, it's up to you to take these lessons, take this knowledge and do something. And on that note, I thank you, I thank all my guests and partners here, and I thank all of you, and goodbye.